We gotta make it Nandy size.
Hey, what's your nephew?
Lamar, you got a wide
He's
line?
actually about
No, I'm
he's just
kidding.
doing janitorial
Kidding
work,
for Fernando.
But they're gonna have what'd he say? What'd you say?
I said you got a wide lens.
Hey, we need a wide lens for the big boy. Hey, but Braden, can you tell if can you tell if I'm all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll adjust.
I don't want to be like, like breathing on the mic.
Today we have with us somebody that we've been trying to get multiple times. One of the most elusive. It's like trying to find Bigfoot.
It's on terms with Where's Waldo.
Is it Fernando?
Fernando.
Fernando.
Many names.
Fernando Dechellis. Finally got him on. We've been trying to get you on for quite some time. But great friend of mine. We've been friends for I'd coached you. Started my first year coaching football was your freshman year.
We started out together.
Yeah, came all the way through, and then you started coaching. How long after?
Coach Burtis asked me to come back right after I graduated.
Okay.
And I volunteered for 2 years with the freshman with Coach Satch.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So right out.
Right out.
And then, is that when you came with me? Did you take a year off? You took a year off.
I took a couple years off.
Okay.
And then when you got the gig at Struthers, is when I got back into it.
Okay. So,
My connection goes back to 97 in Disneyland, Disney World.
Oh, that was a day.
I took my kid, my wife and 2 kids to Disney World, and we're walking down the middle of Magic Kingdom, whatever that street's name, and I mentioned to my son, who was, I don't know, 9 at the time, maybe. That's about right. Maybe 8. My daughter was 4. That sounds pretty close. Anyway, I said, I'll bet we run into somebody that we know. There comes a gang of Volney kids.
Yeah, I'll never forget that day. I remember we went to, it was Disney World for 8th grade class trip.
You went to Disney for a class trip?
We went, yes. First and only class, last one. I never forget it. We were walking, I think it was like Magic Kingdom or something. The one with the castle.
Yeah.
We were walking down that strip. And, of course, it was like me and some of those guys from my DJ, Joe Herman, and all those guys. And we're walking, and I just happened to glance up, and I was like, oh, my God. I'm like, yo, there's Coach Burtis. You're like, yeah, right. We looked over. It was almost like he just like when like you're in class and you're doing you're something you're not supposed to be doing, and you get caught. It kind of felt like that. Like, oh my God, he caught us. Even though we were both on different. He was having a vacation with his family.
And you guys were lifting with us.
Yes,
at the
time. And we just kind of lifted days before, and it was kind of like just getting that break because, we right in 8th grade, right when we were done, right when you guys started, in the spring is when we were able to come and lift.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the first time I besides seeing him come down when he talked to us at Volney, and just going to lifting, and when you're that young, you kind of don't want to associate with the head hat as much, because you're brand new.
What were you guys doing at the Magic Kingdom, walking around by yourselves? What could you possibly have been?
Different time back then, I guess. I remember we would stay in groups of 5 or 8, and the chaperones would be like, everybody put on your watch. Meet us back here in 4 hours.
That's not happening.
4 hours. Yeah. And the majority of us just stayed in the arcades.
Yeah.
But, it was a different time.
I remember. So, what year did you graduate again?
I graduated 02.
02.
So my last football season would have been 01.
I remember you when I went to St. Anthony's my 8th grade year.
Yes.
And you were at St. Anthony's.
Yep.
And they had like that little, the elementary basketball.
Yes.
And you were with your slick back hair, and you were running point guard. Same body shape.
Hey, man, athlete's stuck in a big guy's body. What can I say?
No, it is, right. But I remember it. You'd be coming down, dribbling with your left hand, putting up your, like, number one, number two, calling the set.
It was the same play.
I wasn't officiating, was I?
You might have kicked him out. You might have kicked him out. So we basically just kind of start. Maybe give us a little bit of background, your time coming up, leading to Cheney, and then we'll progress from there.
All right. Well, I guess I'll start from where it really mattered. I guess I can remember I went to grade school, St. Anthony's Catholic school, up through 6th grade, and played a little bit of basketball and the younger youth level, but never had exposure to Little League football or anything like that. And at the time, the neighborhood I lived in, there was only a handful of kids. They were the majority of the, I guess, kids then around the area were teenagers, like my sister's age, 5, 6, 7 years older. There's only a few that were kind of my age, and one of them actually Keelan Dykes, who you've had on, and Joshua Dama, who played for you guys, graduated with me. I can remember, I went to a couple Cheney games with him when we were in 7th grade, just on a Friday night, and I think his sister was a freshman at the time. So we went with her and her friends or whatever. It's a YSU game. And I remember going to that and I was like, man, this is like the coolest thing ever. Like these guys actually play at a college stadium, And like again, I never played football myself, but Josh would always, once you play. So finally, long story short, talks me into going out to Volney, my 8th grade year. And I can remember the day that Coach Burtis came down to talk to us. And I remember the coaching staff, the Gesslers, who coached with you, for years in the past, they would always, talk about the tradition, that Cheney had. And, someday you're going to be playing, on this team. And they just gave us, all this, try to push us in that direction. And Coach Burtis came down and talked to us one day, and I just remember when he came, like just his presence, like kind of was like you just knew someone important was here to talk to you. Hey man, it is what it is. And this the things he said. I think you had a couple players with you too. You might have
Probably.
and just seeing like some of those guys, and I remember seeing them playing on Friday and being an impact in the game, and it was just kind of surreal, like seeing, hey man, I remember seeing him playing. Like that's a big dog.
Who are some of those guys that you looked up to?
Well, there was quite a few, but just for a couple names, like there was Anthony Floyd, Jason Fuller, another guy who I'm going to mention here in a second, who was probably one of the biggest influential people when it came to Cheney football, and that was Carmen Farina. And I'll tell you why in a minute. I remember you invited the Volney team to a game to come on the sideline. So I remember we went to that, and we were able to be like the water boys and just get that sideline experience. Man, I just remember, and I'm sure Mark will remember going to this and just getting the sound of the band, that cool, fall night, and just that football atmosphere just sucked me right in. And that right there was it for me. But I remember when we were an 8th grader, or I was an 8th grader, and we would come up and do conditioning after school when I was still at Volney. Tuesdays and Thursdays, hated it. Step station, hated it. I'll never forget. This is probably like my second or third workout in, and I don't remember what coach was at the station, but just you can never do it right, no matter what. And I got to the point.
Sounds like Pope.
Might have been. I just remember I got to the point where I thought I found my limit, and I remember grabbing my stuff. No one noticed. I just grabbed my stuff. I started walking down the hallway, senior hallway. I got about halfway down, and I got a freaking big paw on my shoulder. He's like, Rico. I don't know why they called me Rico, but that was a nickname that those seniors gave me. Hey, Rico, where you going? I'm like, this isn't for me. He was like, if you stick it out now, I promise it'll get easier. So that was Carmen. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for him, I would have made it to the door and probably wouldn't have came back. I would imagine. And the reason I say that is because, I guess being a part of, this whole Cheney thing and being a part of the football team and playing for you, it really gave me an avenue to socialize with peers my age.
Let me ask you a question real quick. So, I'm going to ask you because you've been around a number of different football programs, okay? And this is the essence of kind of the topic that we always talk about. What just happened there with Carmen Farina coming and talking to you? Like, that's not just a thing that happens at Cheney. Like, older guys taking interest in younger guys. But obviously there's something different. So you've had the opportunity to coach at a couple different schools. You're teaching. What is it that makes it different than just that interaction, right? So, like, what's different about that experience than, say, any of the places you've been or been around?
I guess it's a little different because that experience was my own experience. I guess the other experiences you're referring to that I've experienced or seen are just, from my point of view, not to the player it's happening to. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I really can't. I really don't know how to answer that one, Dallas. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I guess what it was for me was the fact that, like I said, I remember seeing that guy out on the field and playing, his heart out and, doing big things and the crowd cheering for him and, watching the coaching staff get excited when he did something great. Mm-hmm. And for that guy to come up and talk, stop me from leaving, why? Mm-hmm. I guess that was a question I asked myself after, and I guess what it all boils down to is, like what I was getting to is, I took it in as this is like a brotherhood to me. It's kind of like a fraternity, being a part of, this tradition.
When you were there, we had a big little brother program. We had the older guys kind of adopt. I'm wondering, was Carmen your big brother?
You know what? I'm wondering if that's what it was, because out of all of them,
because we would bring the guys in and ask them, hey, you look after these guys. You check on their academics, you check on their attitudes, and you be there for them. And if that's the case, that's really a pretty neat success.
Yeah, it they've actually worked out then, because like I said, that was a huge impact on me.
Yeah. And so, to your point, then maybe that answers the question. That's all part of the program.
Mm. I see what you're saying. Yep.
So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, I guess that would be the difference. Because coaching. You see, like, those other aspects where an older kid really doesn't pay attention to a younger kid, and that younger kid really isn't too interested in that older kid. they're kind of doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's not that, that continuity. Like
Yeah.
we all have the same goal here. You know what I mean? But I mean that's what it was for me, and I was wrapped in after that.
Ron,
And that's kind of what I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of what got me into coaching. Right after, immediately, was I'm sure most of your ex-players can attest to this, but when that senior year bell hits and it's over, you kind of have a hard time sometimes letting it go, and sometimes the next best thing to still embrace that is giving back and coaching,
Being a part of it.
yes. So
Ron, any memories on Fernando kind of coming in or coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, like I said, Disney World part of it, but I remember, even running into him as an 8th grader that you were fairly strong coming up, and
according to the numbers, I guess.
yeah, I mean, that's what I initially remember as far as making that connection as a young kid coming into our program, and then certainly as he developed in the program, I think he developed into, I'm sure you can attest, one of the best linemen we've ever had.
I can't speak to before, but I'd put him up against anybody, without a doubt. So, and we'll get to that. Fernando, you end up your freshman year, you're playing D tackle, and what are you doing on offense?
Back up to a backup.
Were you snapping at that point? No, you couldn't snap because you couldn't cover on punts.
Right, right. And we kicked
But you were the best snapper we had.
Yeah,
yeah. No, right.
Yeah, I remember the deal. I think we even contemplated on switching responsibilities with Charlie. Like after you punt it, you sprint down there. And Nando will play the safety. Just mirror the ball. Yeah, we never had to do it. So
yeah. So you start going into your sophomore year, right? Were there that was a little bit of a transition time, so that would have been I start coaching varsity at that point in time, coming off of the 90, 96, 97, 98 successes, right? Lot of spots to fill in 1999. That's your sophomore year. What are
tough year?
Well,
It was
right,
a tough year.
Yeah.
All the way around. Yeah.
So what was tough about it?
Well, a lot of things.
Okay, so from the start,
I mean,
transitioning, being a player,
right? I mean, as far as I can remember, playing as a freshman and being successful at my position and my spot against the kids I was competing with, taking that next step up. Now you're playing with some older guys and who are bigger and stronger than the kids in your grade.
Yeah.
So there's more competition.
Yeah.
So that right there in itself was a challenge, I would say.
How'd you handle doubles? Your first double session, and not being able to just coast through it like most sophomores.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. See, that's the thing. Like, the one thing I can remember as a player is whatever you were going through, it always felt much better looking to the left or right of you and seeing the guy next to you going through the same damn thing and knowing that you weren't in it on your own. Mm-hmm. So I knew we were all in a fight, in a dog fight, and I knew everybody was struggling, so you kind of don't want to let them down, you know what I mean? And at the same time, not let yourself down and your coaches. So you kind of just stick your feet in the dirt and go, man, Don't get me wrong, after the first day and I went home, I was like, oh my God. we have to do this again, like the rest of the week. Yeah, but after a while, just that you get in that routine, and that was one thing that I could say that, playing for Coach Burtis, there was always a routine. Things were done the same way every time, and I felt like that played a huge part in our success for so many years. You kind of knew and expected, and knew what to expect, even as a young player. Like I said, just seeing all those older guys, I would think back, just moments like that. Well, all those other guys did it. Carmen did it. Like, if he could do it, I could do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was definitely tough. I don't think they could probably have practices like we had anymore. I could probably say that.
What do you remember?
Man. I know there's. Listen, I think every class probably has a story about 90, 140s or something. I do remember being on track getting up there. We're over 60. But I can honestly, listen, you want to talk about
330s?
Those sucked every time we did it, whether freshman, sophomore, up to senior year. But the one thing I remember was my sophomore year when we weren't very good, but we were trying to find a way to turn the corner because we were in a few games that year where we probably should have won.
Oh yeah,
and we ended up finishing 4-6. But I can remember we kind of struggled up front, and man, we hit that sled for like
Black Monday.
Yeah, Keelan. I remember Keelan talking about this.
Black Monday.
Yeah, that day that was a day of reckoning, and that was probably the second day in my Cheney career that I was like, this isn't for me. I think I found my.
I don't think you were alone in that one.
No, definitely
I don't
not.
think you were alone.
Definitely not. But yeah, that was probably the toughest day. But I can also say, I think even after all that, like my junior and senior year, we kind of just incorporated that sled into our practice, and we ended up running zone like champs. Remember we would run that, with our tailbacks. And we'd run toss right, toss left, sweep right, sweep left, and have the receivers just sprinting. Like we would all do it.
Stretch right, stretch left.
Yep.
But I think that's one of the things, and maybe I'm completely wrong. I think that's one of the things that is lost in. I shouldn't say this because I don't know. That's one of the most important things to do. Let's put it that way: is to hit the sled, because it's the technique. It's also mentality. It's also the conditioning piece. I mean, it is a mindset when you go into sled period. Like, here we go. And you remember we used to load that thing up. It'd be 4th and 1. We'd have every lineman on the sled.
Yes.
And hit it.
If you weren't in, get on the sled. I remember that. And even to this day, and the couple years I experienced coaching at Southern, I try to emulate that as best as I could. Because I truly believe that. Like, my senior year, we weren't the most talented. Like, I get it. We didn't have as many weapons as we did the year before with Brad and Tondi and Marcus and all those guys and Don Bow. But we took pride in knowing that we could push everybody around.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was our time to work on that craft, sled time, like, I think I could honestly say we took it pretty serious.
Mm-hmm.
Because we believed in it and we knew what we were going to do. As a coach, I can personally, say from my experience, especially at Southern, not talking so much at Struthers, I had a hard time having my guys buy into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I don't know if it's because of the smaller school situation. There's just not as many kids as to where when we played, at a Division II, level, you got more kids. But towards the end of the year, my last year, I got most of them to buy into it, and it reflected going into the playoffs. You know what I mean? So, like you said about the sled, I mean, I think that's a huge, huge tool. That's kind of diminishing, I think, at the high school level.
I'd go out on a limb and say that anyone, even today, that incorporates heavy use of the sled, as you sit here and reminisce about sled stories, I'm not going to sit here and tell you
Yours?
how we got by with 160-pound guards, but it was because of sweep drill. I mean, and it was sled and releasing and going and doing it endlessly and doing it at peak heat in the afternoon. And so, but again, I digress. The teams that I think incorporate heavy sled use in their practices, I think, I'll bet if you did a poll, are for the most part pretty successful.
I would agree, and this is getting into a little granular thing, but as an offensive lineman, the mentality is if your first step's wrong, the block's wrong, and then it's integrating that into the physicality and the stamina of blocking, not just till the whistle, hitting the whistle, crabbing, then stopping. It's that whole layer.
You're teaching relentlessness.
Yes,
absolutely.
That's exactly it.
Absolutely.
If you have that, I mean, what else could be more intimidating to a defense?
I used to love when they'd bring the DBs down, even as a player. They'd bring the DBs down. You guys got to run and tackle it. And, the first guy goes and the second guy goes. And then all of them are hitting it. And then eventually the sled isn't even moving.
Right.
And, hey, we push this thing, certain laps around the field.
Right.
So were you starting that sophomore year? Like, did you...
Defensively.
Okay, so Fitch, you line up against...
Actually, it's a funny story. No, I did not start Fitch game.
Okay.
Andre Reed. You guys remember Andre Reed?
Yes.
Andre Reed.
I remember Andre. Yes.
He actually started. Me and him were competing during doubles.
Okay.
I'll never forget this. I got the proof to show. We got video here. This finger was broken by Coach Burtis. No, I'm just kidding. No, I can remember. I don't know if you remember this. We were doing pop drill.
Yeah.
And me and Andre were partners, and I jacked my finger into his pads, and my finger got stuck like this.
I do remember that. Yeah.
And I was like, what do I do? And, me, I'm like a little freaking baby, 15 years old. I'm like, I gotta go to the hospital, And you're like, I remember you telling me, well, here's the deal. Either you could tape it up and play, or you can go to the doctors, and you're out for 2 weeks. And I was like...
it doesn't age well.
Okay. So I remember Coach Burns taking a look at it, gave it a little yank, and said, tape it up, you'll be all right. It's okay. So we were good after that. I'm so glad I didn't go to the hospital because second drive into that game.
In retrospect, you could have owned my house.
No, you know what? Listen, if anything, I think that was a teaching moment of toughness. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like go out and break a bone and, still do all kinds of stuff. I just think, it's kind of like a life lesson, Sometimes life hits you in the face and, puts an obstacle. And sometimes you got to make a choice. And I made a choice. I never told my parents or anything, but, they don't know any better. So.
Who needs a pinky?
Second series into that game. Real quick, I remember you calling me because we used to do bed check. Remember, we used to do bed check. Get a phone call from our position coach.
Yep.
And I remember Coach Saunders saying, "All right, Fernando, you better be ready tomorrow." And I'm thinking to myself, "Okay, yeah, sure, yeah, I'm ready, Coach." Thinking to myself, there ain't no way, there ain't a shot I'm getting in. And second drive, I remember watching Andre Reed lock up with one of their big guys. I think his name was Sammy Mays.
Yes.
think he went to Oklahoma State or something.
Yes.
And he was struggling with him. And I just remember you looking over at me and saying, "All right, get in." And I was like, "What?" And I felt like I wanted to puke. But I ran out there and I got down on my stance. And the big boy whispered over to me, goes, "Fresh meat." And I was like, "Holy crap." And he put me on the ground first play. But after that, it was like that fight or flight. After that, that's all I needed. It was that reassurance that I could play with this guy. And it was a wrap after that. I ended up starting the rest of the year out. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that first game I was not technically a starter. Yeah. But after that.
Yeah, it's a
going into Canfield.
What's that?
When we went into Canfield.
Okay, that's a second
week
game.
2.
Yeah, and then week 3 was Camel.
Boardman.
So, welcome to varsity football.
Real quick. Yeah. Really quick.
Yeah, right.
Really quick.
How did you, at that point in time, and I know there were a number like Graffiti, Stablarek, Reagan. There were a number of older guys, but you're also starting Keelan Dykes. You're also starting
Eddie Molina, I think.
I don't think he was. He'd have been a freshman. Keelan.
Oh yeah.
You got some 2 young pups
Yeah.
on both sides of the ball. What's kind of your mindset when you're not where you want to be up front wise?
Yeah, well, blame it on the assistants. No, obviously we were scratching and not where we needed to be at certain places, but we knew we had talented guys. I mean, think about there was a lot of talent on that team. Skill guys, and linemen as well. So, it's kind of, you take it back to the drawing board mentality and, discuss what do we need to do to get better in certain spots. And whatever we came up with worked sometimes, sometimes it didn't. But like you said, we lost a number of close games.
Oh yeah.
And then then the accident happened, and I think we were playing down the stretch. We were playing our best football, and then even after the accident,
So right before the accident, we played Maslin. Remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, 14-0 at halftime.
Should have beat them. I mean,
Yep.
Didn't get a call or got a call towards the end of the game that really changed things because we really had them on the ropes. But even, I think directly right after the accident, did we play Hoban?
Akron Hoban.
Yeah.
Over there. And we were
right.
We had them in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and we were short guys. I mean,
Juan Serrano, who never played, had to go in. Like he didn't even I don't even think he played one rep at wide receiver that year, but I think like maybe Tondi might have been down or somebody.
Yeah, well,
at the
Tondi was
moment.
down.
Oh yeah, but there was other guys down to where we had to. You were scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Absolutely.
And I remember thinking, Judy's never even ran a route in a game. He ended up catching the ball, on a couple passes.
Yeah.
As a sophomore, But yeah, that was a game.
Yeah.
So we were in it.
I mean, there's 2 games against 2 top-notch opponents that were winnable.
Well, so let's circle back to a couple of things. Maslin. I remember going down there. I'd never. Everybody hears about Maslin. This would have been 99. Shepis, right? Shepis is the head coach, and
this might have been 2000. Dallas. 2000. No, it was 99.
99.
You're right. 99. Yep.
2000 was the payback year.
Yeah, you're right.
So 99, he's the head coach. They had the Go Tigers documentary.
Yes. Yep.
right? You remember that?
Yeah, I was on that film.
Yeah.
Trying to run down, trying to chase someone that I was never going to catch.
It's as you should. So the hoopla at that point in time was pretty significant, right? They bring out, they actually pull the tiger out, whatever the tiger's name is. They have the fireworks and all kinds of stuff. Obi or something?
Obi.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that's what it might be. And so they're doing this documentary, and Ron has one of the best lines ever. I love it. They interview all the coaches, and so it's featuring the magnitude, the epicness, the tradition, the awesomeness of Massillon, and how you basically should just come in there and be like, oh my God, we don't belong here, and just lay down and die. And so they interview Ron, I think, before the game. And do you remember the...
Yeah, the guy pulled me, you know how I guess every coach gets before a game, but anyway, they pull me, call up me out of the locker room and say, hey, we're doing this feature, special, whatever, and can we get you on camera? And I said, how long is this going to take? I said, because I got to be with my team. Anyway, he said, no, we'll just take a couple minutes of your time. We really appreciate this. And, okay. Knowing Shep and everything, I felt, okay, I'll do it. So the guy proceeds to, he was almost talking down to me like, you should be really privileged, feel privileged that we're giving you this time in this documentary, and he started talking about, well, how does it feel to come and play Massillon? And I said, well, to be honest with you, it's another game to us, but certainly their tradition is pretty close to ours, or something like that. And he said. Mentioned something about a state championship.
He goes, how does it feel to play a team that has 16 state championships?
Yeah. And I said, state championships? I said, wait a second. I said, and this is during the interview. I said, 16 state championships? I said, well, those are mythical state championships. Those aren't real state championships. I said, because in 97, we came here in Massillon, in this stadium, and played for a real state championship. I said that, was legitimized. And just came up a little bit short. I said, has Massillon ever been in a real state championship game? And the guy didn't know what to say.
Oh.
I bet you that wasn't aired.
It was not.
No.
I was I bought the DVD because I wanted to see the outtakes.
Right.
Never made it.
Surprise.
It did serve one purpose. It ended the interview.
Yes.
It did. I remember the trade film we got. Do you remember this? So we get a trade film from Massillon, right? They have to have the end zone view, the wide view, the trade view.
Yeah, right.
So we end up getting like 3 games, and it's tackle to tackle or tackle to tight end.
You can't even see a formation?
No, can't see routes. He calls him. He goes, "What is this?" He's like, "I can't see." He calls Shep. He's like, "What's going on? I can't see. X, Y, and Z." And Shep's like, "Oh, my fault. I'll make sure."
Wrong copy.
Yeah, I sent the wrong copy.
Shep was like Apollo Creed at the end of the game. He didn't want to play anymore after that.
Well, you think about it. That was we played out of our minds, and right before half, it was at the 1, and it's on the highlight film. There's 4 downs where they're getting in, and we stop them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
right before half.
Yeah, unbelievable. Then they got a little pissed off in the second half and started playing a little bit.
Yeah, but still, we were in a position to win it. There was a call late in the game. they had their officials on the game, and we didn't make the plays that we needed to make, and they won the game. I'm not suggesting that, but our kids played like we brought Bob Roth, if you remember, down to the game. He hooked up with us because he was doing the reporting on it, and
guy.
he couldn't praise the kids enough. As a matter of fact, he asked to go home I let him come on the JV bus, but he asked to come home on the varsity bus just so he could talk to the kids about how hard they played. It was really a great effort by our kids.
So you talked about the you said the accident that would be the shed scenario, which we've never really talked about on here, but that impacted you greatly, literally.
I think that when that happened, I think that was one of the moments where I don't know, in life you find just certain people that are going to be in your life for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of those moments. And I can remember, after my surgery, most of you coaches shaved your heads because I had to shave mine. And just, I don't know, I thought that was one of the biggest things ever. That wasn't something you guys had to do. And I just knew at that moment, I don't know, like I was going to say before, before football became a thing and becoming part of, the Cheney family, I had a hard time, making friends or those type of relationships. And I think this football was an avenue to, kind of bridge that. And, with the whole shed thing, still to this day, I mean, you guys know, I can send you guys a text almost every year, when that day comes. And, even to this day, when I see some of those old guys like DJ and, talked to Robert Drake not too long ago,
What's he
through
doing?
text messages.
Yeah.
He sells insurance.
Okay.
But, Kenny Bielek, another kid that graduated with me, we can all relate back to that. And it's one of those moments where, you kind of made it through as a unit. You know what I mean? And, I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where just grateful to have good people, you know what I mean, that are involved in your life.
Yeah.
Like I said, after that, football was, a huge bridge for me. I mean, look what it did for me career-wise, knowing you guys. I got to work with you guys, my first gig as a teacher, just to backtrack a little bit, after football was over and after we were done coaching at Struthers, I was kind of at a point where I didn't know which direction to go. I was still going to school, but, I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do, was in and out of, different majors. And that's when I was working at U-Haul, remember?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I figured, you know what? I'm going to try to make this a thing. And I'm just going to stick with it. And try to make it a career. Long story short, things just weren't working out. I got short end of the stick a couple times, and I'll never forget that day. You came up to get your propane tank filled. And you were superintendent at Southern at the time. He said, come work for me.
Principal.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Principal. Come work for me. And I'm like, I don't know. You gave me some time to think about it. You gave me an opportunity. And I ended up going back to school, to get my teaching degree. And it's one of the best decisions I ever made. And like I said, if it wasn't for, playing at Cheney, meeting you, you know what I mean? I'd never have the opportunity that I have right now. You know what I mean?
I think it's one of those, like you talked about with Carmen, the interaction you had with Carmen, like
it all ties together.
Yeah, it's people investing in people, and
I mean, think about this. Think about it though. He hires you.
Yeah.
Did you even coach before that?
I was
like varsity coach anywhere?
No, I was coaching baseball at Cheney.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was like your first year coaching football, right? It was my freshman year, right?
Mm-hmm.
He hires you. Me and you become close.
Mm-hmm.
You hire me.
Mm-hmm.
I have a career. That's that bridge I'm talking about.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, you've already moved on to somewhere else, and I'm still where I am. But like I said, just that connection, you know what I mean? It's priceless. Like that's what I mean. Like this, just that brotherhood. You know what I mean? Just being all together. It's priceless to me.
It's a lot easier to, and Ron can attest to this. It's a lot easier to, whether it's coaching wise, professionally, personally, it's a lot easier to count on somebody that you've already been through wars with.
Yes.
And you know what they're capable of or not capable of, in a positive way, and to surround yourself with those guys, then it is to just.
It becomes a powerful thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the things that you've been through as a coach, as a player, whatever. Like your medal's been tested, and you've been
right
stamped. You're approved.
Right.
So. It's definitely. Thanks, Ron. It's all you. So
Thank Red.
Right. Thank Jess, right?
It's a big chain, man. Like I said,
yeah,
big chain.
Yeah, it's a brotherhood. There's no question.
So, your junior, senior years, you guys are super successful. Your junior year, you're trying to develop your pass rush.
Yeah, tried. Doesn't help when you get taken out on third down, though. Third and long, you get taken out.
If you'd have produced, I never would have had to take you out. Right?
Yeah, give me a chance, man.
Lamar, I don't know. Are you good, Lamar? You good to stay? Okay, all right. I didn't want to like. Okay. So no, I mean, so talking about the 40, different time in terms of football, right? Football was in a phone booth at that time. Things were starting to open up a little bit. Mm-hmm. I do remember your junior. No, that would have been your senior year against Fitch, where you had that sack. That's when I finally left you in. Yeah. How mad would you get when I take you out on third downs?
Like if it was like third and long, and I knew like I could tee off, and like I could actually try like a move without pop, release, rip, rip, swim.
Yeah.
Like I could just try something, because that's what I did on first and second, was make contact. So they're anticipating that. Well, then if I can come with the quick swim that you supposedly taught me, that you never let me use. No, I mean, I'd get upset, but obviously thinking back now, man, it's dumb to keep me in. Why not put a pass rusher in?
Yeah,
like I get it, but yeah, back then, sure. And then when Kevin Merrill got my touchdown, that was a wrap.
Kevin Merrill. We were playing Ran. Now, granted, it was like 36-0 or something. It was right before halftime, and I already knew, because those were back in the days where, sometimes when we played the city teams, and it was like 42-0, and we weren't coming out. The second half, we might have been in shoulder pads. Mm-hmm. We probably weren't playing the second half. Mm-hmm. And I knew I was running out of time. And it was like 3rd and 14, and they were on a 2-yard line.
and you send Kevin out there. And I immediately sent him back. I was like, go. And he starts trotting back, and you're inside like, no, you're it now. Get over here. And I'm like, oh. I remember coming off the field, and I didn't even want to talk to you. I just stood next to you for the rest of the game. But that very next play, he drops the ball. Kevin Merrill jumps on it. Touchdown, 6 points.
Well, I had to feel bad.
No, you did, because I remember looking at you like this, and you just looked at me, and you kind of laughed, because what are you going to do, you know? But it is what it is.
Ron, what expectations did you have in terms of Fernando kind of coming into his junior, senior year, and then maybe talk about the player you think he developed into towards the end?
Oh, as I said earlier, I think he, we had great expectations. He was the three anchor. I mean, the three technique anchor. I mean, he was our guy that couldn't be trapped, or at the very least was very, very tough to trap him, I'll stand by this. And you're his position coach, but he was the best three guy that I had during my tenure.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think he. There might have been a couple times you got trapped. I don't know, maybe once or twice.
Yeah, that's kind of what you say every now and then, but.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
Well, I got to keep your. Yeah, always had to keep
we're
you humble.
We're going to bust out the film for that.
Always had to keep you humble. No, I think I vividly remember. I was really impressed. I remember a couple of those games with Poland where they were just bloodbaths, and they were just wars. And I remember. You could probably get down in a 3-point stance, just like most good 40 read tackles. Get down in a 3-point stance, and you could probably still read a guard.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
But you were always pretty good at, you started incorporating that spin move on the gap block.
And Coach Pope hated.
Well, and yeah, I mean, it was.
I totally get why.
But
I totally get why.
As a 40 read technique, if you're really reading the gap blocks,
right,
one of the most difficult to deal with.
Failure.
Yeah. And so. And I remember you spinning and the freelance. And listen, Walt Vrabel, who was my position coach, told me, hey, you freelance all you want. Good job if it works. If it doesn't, you're mine.
As a matter of fact, I kind of think you repeated the same message to me.
I certainly did. I gave him credit because I didn't come up with it. Yeah. But, and that's where, and Pope was definitely what would you say? Like a purist, and I mean that. Yeah. Like, hey, this is how you do it, but I think when you got good players, sometimes they can bring their own little flavor to it. And then I remember your senior year, coming into your senior year, you were so frustrated. Do you remember this?
It was a different ball game.
Your senior year, like you were so frustrated. And I remember you like being emotional and crying, like one day during doubles, like I can't pass rush and.
And then I remember going up against Keelan that day. And I just couldn't.
This was 2000.
Was this my? You talking?
It would have been going into your senior year.
Senior year.
Yeah.
Yep.
2000.
It was going into the 01 season.
01 season. Yeah.
Keelan would have been a junior.
Well, I didn't realize that was what frustrated you. I mean, that was probably.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you probably weren't gonna play much better guys.
Right, and thinking back on it now, like I get it, and I mean. I'd be lying if I couldn't give him, credit for making me better. Because as far as back as I can remember, I mean, you would always group me and him up.
Yeah.
And especially my senior year, there was always a competition.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there was times where, because you know why? I went from sophomore year where, he's a sophomore, we can single block him. Junior year, probably had the same mentality, but that's when I played a little better. And, but my senior year, Like, I remember getting triple teamed, like double and triple teamed, like every play. And I think that's where most of the frustration come in because, you know, I kind of thought it was going to be kind of a repeat of my junior year, and that it didn't turn out that way. You know, and I think it may have been, you know, a couple weeks into the season or a few weeks into the season of just going through that and not being able to perform like I wanted to because getting double and triple teamed.
Yeah, but I don't remember
in
it being
practice.
a disappointing year
What
for
year?
you.
No, but
2001.
like I said, you know, every person has their moment. I think just that day in practice, maybe I had a bad day too. Who knows?
Okay.
But you know, just the fact that I couldn't, like, Keelan just had my number that day, and I couldn't even get a little win, and I think it became overwhelming. You know, and I think it was because of just those previous weeks of being frustrated. You know, like I said, just not feeling like I was producing like I should have.
Well, I think I lost my train of thought there.
Well, think about just, you know, as much as the accident and, you know, the negative things that occurred, think about all the success that he brought to the program. You know, never lost a league game
No,
in your city champs 3 years in a row.
undefeated and scored upon.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I believe so.
AP state champs in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
10 wins, 10 wins. Playoff win against Walsh.
Yep. And that was kind of a weird scenario too. Remember, that was the same team you guys had played in '97.
Yeah.
And the same score.
Same score.
Everything. Yeah. It's kind of weird. But I mean, yeah, going from that. I mean, from our freshman year. Do you remember our freshman year?
Yeah, not
There wasn't much to remember.
yeah, not successful.
Yeah, I think we won like one game. Pretty sure. And I remember getting beat by Boardman was bad that year.
Yeah.
But, you know, going from, let's just say 1-9, because that's what I remember.
Well, we didn't play 10 games, but
No, I think it was like 8. I think it was like 8.
Yeah.
We won 1, lost the rest, as far as I can remember. Sophomore year, we went 4-6. Patched up ship. You know, just bad year.
City champs.
City champs, though. To a 10-0 AP state champs. And 9-1 regular season my senior year. And then we ended up finishing 10-2.
You sound like Maslin.
Right?
AP state champs. Mythical. It's mythical.
Mythical. And they tore that sign down and everything already.
We're
It's
going to
gone.
take, no, it's. I think it's a Cheney.
Oh, is it
He's
really?
got it, yeah.
Oh.
They're going to resurrect it.
No, and you know, you think about those guys that were on those teams. You know, especially the interior. You know, you got Keelan, yourself, Sully, Molina, Halinka. You know, there's so many of those guys. Like that, and we would go best on best at times.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's iron sharpening iron there. I mean, there's no.
I mean, I can remember. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember. I can remember up until like my senior year, I played scout team defense. Freaking John Armeni and Buddy Salzman hated me. Yeah. Joe Herman hated me. So I mean, like, you know, but I feel like that's, you know, I'm not doing this by all means, but I feel like, you know, that helped the cause. You know what I mean?
There's no doubt because
You're getting a good look. You know what I mean? Every single practice play.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
yeah, and so back to my point of you being kind of emotional. It was, and I remember your senior year. I didn't take you out in passing situations. You know what I mean? Like you, that was not a natural thing.
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
right.
something that through brute force, practice, effort, you know, setting up your pass rush 4 plays before,
Oh, yeah.
setting things up, that was you working on your craft and developing that.
Right.
Because everything else you could do, but that was something that you had to
That was the thing that I had the most difficult with, and I mean, I guess what really helped me out is just taking the tips you gave me, setting it up. You know what I mean? Because it was always easy to just bull rush someone, but if you do that 2-3 times in a row, I mean, what do you think they're going to do on the next play? They're thinking he's coming, and they start leaning forward, and you could throw a different move at them.
Yeah.
So that's how I had to become a little crafty with it, because I wasn't blessed with Keelan Dykes' arm, what's it called, wingspan, and his 6'5", 6'6" height.
But here again, and that's a guy too that was also working at his craft. He wasn't just better. It was the total package. So what are you doing now?
Well, I teach at Southern Local. Last year, I got back into coaching junior high football. That's going to be year to year, whether I'm going to continue to do that. I'm also coaching high school bowling. I am the assistant varsity bowling coach at Southern Local.
Okay.
And as soon as that golf job vacates, it's going to be mine too.
Oh my gosh.
A professor told me in graduate school that if they took the bars out of bowling alley, the sport would die.
It's funny you say that. Our last match that we had, the owner of the bowling alley, usually they come out right before a match starts and they kind of introduce both teams. They do the national anthem, and then he says a couple words. Players stay down in the bowling area. Make sure you're not coming up communicating with fans and parents. Keep the drinks outside. He had mentioned, he goes, make sure that we keep all alcoholic beverages up here. And he's talking about selling alcohol, and I'm thinking, we're at a high school bowling match. Why are we selling alcohol? And I couldn't understand it. But yeah, he made it a point to
Thank God they don't sell alcohol at high school football games. We have riots. Couple things to wrap up here. Who were some of the players the good players that you remember going up against? Because I know there were some really good linemen that you ended up crossing paths with through your time playing.
Every single chain lineman I went up against. All my buddies. No, I would have to say those couple names that stand out. The Sam Mays guy for my sophomore year, from which I never followed him, but I think from what I heard, he ended up going to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I believe so.
There was, I believe, the guy from Poland, Gabby Debo.
Yeah, that's the one I remember.
Gabby
you using that spin move.
Yeah. I remember that week of practice, me and Keelan were. That was our, during practice, we would every time we made a big play or stopped, scout team.
Yeah.
Gabby Debo. Keelan would always say something. Just and prepping for that week. There was also, I can't remember his name, but he played tackle. Yes, I do remember his name. His last name was Cola. Played right tackle for Boardman. And I remember when we played Boardman my senior year, they ran freaking G down our throat. Right before half, 7 plays in a row. I remember there came to a point where, I already knew the guard was going out, and I was just diving into his knees just to try to cause a pile, because he was a big boy. He was 6'5", 305.
I wonder if he's related or the son of Jimmy Cola, who played at Mooney. Was a real good lineman.
Might have been, because this kid looked the part. I mean, he was strong, I remember.
He just passed away, actually, not too long ago.
There were a couple other ones. Greco, Vallis. Those are some NFL linemen.
Vallis, Greco. Fitch?
No, from Boardman.
Boardman,
yeah.
Vallis. Maybe that was him. No, it was Cola than I remember.
Yeah.
But he ended up going to the league, the Vallis kid?
I want to say both of them got some time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But there were some good linemen that
Yeah, I actually got to go up against.
yeah.
I'd have to say though the best that I ever went against, out of all my varsity years, would have had to been sad to say that kid from Maslin. He wore the same number as me. He played left guard. And
was that the kid? Was that the white kid in the movie?
In the movie, yeah, chugging.
That was doing
cake stand.
cake stands.
Yes, that would be him. All I know is I remember that guy picking me up like this and being on top of me, face to face, and just his sweat dripping right here. I was like, oh my God, get off me. But
you vowed to never let that happen again.
It didn't. That kind of ticked me off. But, those are some of the guys that I can think of. But, you don't go into those games. I mean, I don't know. We had a different mentality. I didn't go into those games thinking, oh, man, I get to play this kid who's, like, really good. And, Keelan and the rest of those guys can probably say the same thing. You go in there with the mentality, like, he ain't as good as me.
Right, yeah. So, and that's how it should be.
Yep. So I can remember, not to be ignorant, but those names weren't really they didn't leave a mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was it like? You ended up being our PAT snapper, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was
I know where this is going.
What was it like snapping on our practice field at when we're doing
to do anything on our practice field, and any one of your players can contest this. Mark, you said the same thing. This is absolutely wretched. But to do things,
I didn't build it.
I get it. But yeah, when you're working on PAT and specials, like in craters and stuff like that, like I get it. You always did like to put us in worst case scenarios.
You
like,
gotta
understand that.
You gotta understand this.
But good God,
if you remember, I got from Mr. Farina, Carl Farina's father, I got bags of grass. And I planted it down on that dust. And I'd go down there and water it during doubles in the heat of the afternoon. I'd move that sprinkler back and forth to try to get some type of.
I remember you were trying to nurse it back to health.
That was dead dirt. Dead dirt.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I do remember that. Do you want me to talk about that scenario?
Well, I don't. Didn't you have a bad snap or something?
Oh yeah, there was a moment where I was humbled pretty quickly. We were doing extra points, and was this my senior year?
It was. You were established, yeah.
Senior year. So I've been doing this since 10th grade. I did this for all 3 years. So, we're doing our drills, and of course, the one time I go to snap the ball, and the ball's in a crater, and I go to snap it back, and it kind of dribbles back. And I think we had kicked already a couple field goals, and we didn't make them, so Coach Pope was already kind of pissed off. And when Coach Pope's pissed off, he lets you know about it, And I dribbled the ball back, and he goes, well, what the heck was that? So just politely and calmly I said, I hit a hole.
Politely and calmly.
And he goes, oh, blows his whistle, timeout. I guess we should ask the ref for a redo, since Nando can't snap the ball correctly. And at that moment in my mind, that time in my life, I'm like, wow. I'm done with Coach Pope. But that's not the case. I love Coach Pope. But at that moment, I think it was just because, I was doing it for so long, and that never happens. And, this one of those scenarios, frustration, the coach was already upset because we weren't performing like we probably should have. So, yeah, that was my little meltdown. I'm sure, you got a different story in your ear on the sideline.
No, I was there. I was watching it.
I mean, but I'm sure
Oh, you told me?
Yeah, I'm sure I
you were
vented to you.
You were very emotional, temperamental
Yes.
young man. I just remember when we'd be doing gassers at the end of practice, he'd be trucking through and he'd make it on the last one and
Rip my helmet off.
Rip his helmet off.
Like I was dying.
Yeah, like it was. You were probably.
I felt like I was dying.
Yeah. So today, I think today's the first time that we said to be here at 2:00. You were here at like 1:50. What's wrong with you?
Hey.
Who are you, and what have you done with my friend?
Hey, sometimes, you know what? Sometimes, like, you have that, your kid, you just keep telling them something over and over and over.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I hope one day this sticks. It finally stuck to us.
Wow. Listen.
It stuck.
This guy.
Turn over a new leaf.
When we
better.
When we were coaching in Struthers, he must have spent more time on 680 than anybody I've ever met in my life. We'd be getting ready to go out or getting ready to do things and, practice and this, that, and the other. Inevitably, somebody have to call Fernando.
Where are you at? I'm getting off 680 right now. I'm getting off the exit right now.
I shouldn't say every day. Frequently.
But yeah, that was like the ongoing joke. As whenever we got together, golfing or wherever, Nando was supposed to go somewhere. Where are you at? You just getting off 680?
Yeah. And then the other thing was, but he would make up for it at the time he was working at, you'd have loved this, at the time he was working at Handles.
Oh, yeah.
And he would bring in, I mean, my God, we must have had 20 pints of ice cream.
On a Saturday,
in the freezer.
Film sessions and stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
I'd be like, hey, I'll be right back. Drive down to Southside Handles. Come back with 4 bags of pints of ice cream. Let me throw them right in the fridge or in the freezer.
Good day of practice, have a little pint of ice cream.
Yeah.
Nice.
Bad day of practice.
Have a pint of ice cream.
Yeah. Ron, you want to kind of wrap up any final thoughts?
No, it's just always great to see you, and we certainly appreciate what a great player you were for us, and how you've developed into being the solid citizen that you are, and great to have you here, and
Thanks, Coach.
look forward to a long friendship.
Definitely. I just want to tell you guys I really appreciate you guys. Not only just for having me, but like I said, it goes back to what I said, just being a part of it.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that I can be a part of it.
Well, it's, I think we've been friends longer, for me, longer than we haven't at this point. It's one of those lifelong friendships that, I'm really appreciative of. And,
Definitely.
Just like same thing with Ron, too. I mean, it's one of those things where there's a time in life, and like you said it very well, you recognize it, you're going to be around people that you have for the rest of your life. So
For sure.
Next time we'll have to have a card game. Get together and play some cards.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right,
Thank
man.
you.